Educating students in rural settings is an important part of public education in America. More than half of all school districts and a third of all public schools are in rural areas. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, over 12 million students attend a rural public elementary or secondary school, accounting for 25% of all public school students. Unrecognized by most Americans and often overshadowed by the nation's attention to dropout challenges in urban settings, more than one-fifth of public schools in rural America have higher than average dropout rates. Because of their remote locations and more limited resources, schools in rural communities often have less access to high-quality technical assistance than schools in other communities. For this reason, the U.S. Department of Education's High School Graduation Initiative program provided dropout prevention support and technical assistance to grantees and districts across the country. This video highlights dropout prevention efforts in rural districts and schools in North Dakota. In response to the high dropout rate among Native Americans in North Dakota and the need for greater awareness of the many contributions that Native Americans have made in the state, the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction is working to develop the Native American Essential Understandings. This is a resource document created in collaboration with multiple stakeholders, including elders from each of the state's tribes, to provide educators an outline of basic concepts about Native Americans in North Dakota. In July of 2015, the Department of Public Instruction and the North Dakota Indian Affairs Commission hosted the second annual North Dakota Indian Education Summit. This summit brought together educators from across the state to share best practices in Indian education. Among the summit's key presenters was a panel of students that discussed their own issues in school and the importance of cultural grounding in their education.
There is great opportunity for misunderstanding about cultural differences. And that cultural misunderstanding needs to be overcome if we truly are going to prosper as fully as we need to as the people of the United States. A lot of teaching remains to be done. And it is my opinion that the public education system has a great responsibility to be part of that education for our nations.
You all, for very much respects, are on the precipice of not only advancing some of the positive, if not best practices that we've seen work elsewhere in the country. The state where I received one of my educations, Montana, and the essential understandings for all. I know that they're here today sharing about some of those advances and what that means for Native students. Language immersion and what is happening down in Standing Rock. What they're doing is just critical to how we're building this into our system in a way that meets both English proficiency, the understanding of not only U.S. history, math, science, and English, but how we are pursuing tribal ways of knowing and being as a foundation of that success.
We were able to come up with some themes, to develop some themes that we thought would be important for students in North Dakota to know about Native Americans in North Dakota. So basically this document, the North Dakota Native American Essential Understandings, will basically outline basic concepts that every educator in North Dakota should know about Native Americans. And these themes and these essential understandings will come from the elders. We feel it was very important to get their input because they would know what students should know about them in North Dakota, the different tribes and reservations. So we did, gather the elders together. The first gathering was an oral gathering, and again, where they shared stories, their wisdom, their culture, their language, their beliefs. As you know, our dropout rate is fairly high within North Dakota, and our hope is that this resource document will help people become more aware and to hopefully do away with a lot of the stereotypes and things that are out there, so that they will be more understanding and aware of Native Americans in North Dakota. And so we're hoping that will again help decrease the dropout rate and increase the graduation rates within North Dakota, not only on in schools on reservations, but also the schools off the reservation. Our hope is that we will continue to add to this document and have online resources and videos and things that we can also include on the website for DPI under Native American education or Indian education for teachers also to use along with the resource document. One of the things that we thought about, for the summit was to hear from the students. And, that's so important that we hear from students so that we could take that back to our schools and hopefully make some changes, listen to what they're saying, the reasons why they're dropping out, the reasons, their challenges that they've had within school. Hearing that, I'm hoping that, schools, educators, teachers will keep those, ideas and those things that they had mentioned in mind and hopefully make changes within their schools to help students to stay in school, to motivate them, to provide them more access to different resources or different classes that they would like to take, and hopefully, they will continue on to college and to graduate from school.
Everything started with the elders. The elders were the ones that were brought in and asked, what is most important for our children, the next generations, to know? They worked together over a period of time to talk about, share stories, think about what is it that we want our future generations to know. That's how those essential understandings were developed, and I think it's why they're so well accepted in the state. So as we were asked to do some facilitation work up here, we felt that was a really important step, that we would gather elders first and find out what was most important to them, and to begin by telling stories.
Standing Rock Educational Consortium is something that is unique to schools and to tribal nations. It is something that was created because of the struggles or the challenges that we face with our students. Why aren't they being successful? And if the schools can communicate with each other and see what is happening, what is having success, what isn't having success, and they could share that information, and they could try to repeat some of the things, but at the same time set goals for Standing Rock. What is our educational goal for the tribe with the resources that we have, with the directives that we have from the funding source? What can we do? And the consortium, in my opinion, has been very successful in breaking down communication barriers. Instead of having schools that compete against each other for funding, they're actually working together. It doesn't matter what state they're from, or if they're tribal or BIE or state-funded tribal or BIE-funded schools. They look at best practices and what can work and what can't work, and how can they better provide an educational system with the resources that are available.
There were a number of native Standing Rock people that had been educated, worked within the schools, within the college, Head Start, that just wanted more for the students. Being in the systems, in the schools, the colleges, Head Start, the different areas, we saw a need to improve education for our children.
Sometimes we end up with students who feel very divided. I have my school life where I need to act this way, and then I have my home life where I can act this way. Anytime you have students divided like that, that's going to cause challenges in their learning. So if students can come and be their full self, bring their full self to their learning, I think it'll really enhance what they're able to do. So that's been a very positive thing. By bringing the elders in as the experts through video or through the resources being created, those teachers suddenly can become learners with their students and engage, and they develop understanding, and they discover, wow, the way that they think about this is really similar to what my grandparents said. And when you start to develop that understanding, it's really, I think it's harder to dislike or discount someone who you understand. So as soon as that understanding is developed, some really beautiful things begin to happen.
This guy had this doctorate degree, and I said, there's two educations. I said, there's Washichu, and that's good. We need that in today's world. But there's a Dakota way too. The language. The language, that's good. And then, if you go to ceremonies, sweat, and if you're a sun dancer, if you're a pipe carrier, if you're a healer, if you're a singer, and if you know the medicines, the herbs, all that kind of stuff, history. I said, if you went to that university, I said, and told them what you know, he said, you be the only one that knows what you know at that university.
Well, the focus of the project at the MREC, again, is post-secondary success. So the way I see it is, in thinking about my own education and growing up, always wanting to learn more about who I am and how that impacted my education, I think that the MREC has done a good job of trying to incorporate culture and language in that program and in that project. And if you heard the panel yesterday of students and how they all said the importance of knowing who they are. And basically, when I was listening to that, I was thinking, basically what they're talking about is loving themselves. The fact that they're loving who they are. And that, we know, leads to confidence, and confidence leads to self-efficacy, and then leads to, yeah, I can try that. And you know what? If it doesn't work the first time, and I don't succeed, I'm going to try it again. Resiliency. So all of that is a process, and I think it starts here.
One of the biggest things in growing up and moving on with your life, starting your own life, is knowing where you came from, knowing who you are in order to know where you're going and who you want to be. So I think, growing up, I wasn't too into the culture part of being Native American and being Lakota, but my grandma really, she was always adamant about learning your language. Learn your language because it's dying out for a lot of tribes and cultures, and she just always wanted me to learn. And then she died when I was young, so I didn't really have anybody to teach me because my mom didn't learn. So when I got to high school and middle school, I made sure that I took the classes that I need to, that in order to try to at least learn a little bit of my language, learn some words, and put a couple sentences together at least, just for a start. I took 2 years of Lakota at McLaughlin, and I'm still working on the culture part of it. I'm trying to, get in touch with people that I can in order to, go to Sweat and Sundance and try to learn all those things that I didn't get to learn growing up. So I think that was, and knowing that and knowing that I know some of my language helps me get out in the world and be proud of who I am and where I came from. In order to know where I'm going, that's what I need. I need that sort of background.
And for our people, I think knowing your place and your role in the community is huge. And we had a huge network of kinship system, and we had distinct roles and distinct names for those roles and distinct kinship values. And what we do at the Lakota Language Nest is we're not teachers. We use those kinship roles and those names for the. So I'm their aunt in Lakota, Tumi, and he's their grandfather, Lala. And we don't call our children our students. They are for him, they're his Tchakoja, his grandchildren. And for myself, they're my Troja, Naishtunshka, my niece or my nephew. And the belief system, I think, behind that is that when I call you my relative, then I treat you as my relative. And when you are relatives, you have a distinct respect and connection that you don't necessarily have with a teacher at a mainstream school. You don't have that that mutual respect or mutual connection and communication that you do with your own relatives.
Being able to preserve the knowledge that we have right now, our living knowledge, because every day, life expectancy for Native Americans is short. So every day we lose elders with them, we lose traditional knowledge, understanding of who we are. But the second place that I have really high hopes for both Wolakota and the Native American, or North Dakota Native American essential understandings and standards is the ability to give a resource to our teachers, teacher preparation to work in our communities with our students. And I feel like cultural understanding is something that teacher preparation, teachers being prepared to work in diverse settings, period, is not that great nationwide.
Well, I know that the Missouri River Education Cooperative has identified, along with Bismarck-Mandan superintendents, that there are more Native students in the Bismarck-Mandan area than there are on Standing Rock. So there's a huge Native American population in North Dakota, in Bismarck-Mandan community. And so for that reason, it's kind of changed a little bit of the focus at the MRAC now to also reach out to our urban areas, because those schools are also being impacted by the need. How do we reach out to students? How do we keep them in school? How do we provide curriculum and instruction that is relevant to what they want, And so Kevin Locke, who is a Standing Rock member, also has through the MRAC, has come to the schools in Bismarck-Mandan and also provided the same services to reach out to those schools too. So the Bismarck school, actually at the high school, offered a one-credit class for their students, no matter whether they're Native or not, and it was on American Indian culture and language. So they tried that last year. Was the first time that they incorporated that into their high school curriculum.
We have language bowls that connect community reservation-wide. We have language bowls, Jeopardy bowls, and it helps us learn about the history of our people and what they went through, and also the language and the roots of our words. My favorite question has to be Mazashkashka tonachja, and I don't know. It just it just sounds pretty. What time is it?
I'm more than proud than anything to be Lakota and Dakota, and I basically grew up with it. My dad, he's always a part of our traditions, and it pushes me because that's who I am and that's where I come from. And I'm always trying to get involved with something with our culture and our language, and I always try to learn the language as much as I can. I've been taking classes. I took that for 3 weeks, and I've learned a lot in my language, and I want to keep learning it as much as I can because our language is so beautiful, and I don't ever want to lose it. And our school, well, we have classes and stuff, but I wish our school would make it like a class that you have to take, because we have a choice to take it or not, and I feel like that needs to be a class that we need to have every day to keep us going.
The educational system that we have in place is the mainstream education, and it isn't unique to our nation, our tribe, or our people. And when that happens, you really don't get the quality student, I guess. I think you create students who are wandering and don't really know who they are or what their purpose is, what their role is. There's not a clear understanding of themselves. And so the mainstream education system isn't the best. In my opinion, I think it's failing almost for half a century. We can look at statistics and see that it doesn't fit us, our tribe. And so the challenge is, how do we change it? How do we make it fit us? How do we make the educational system work for us?
We try to bring together the different groups that serve the Standing Rock Nation. And I think that's one of the things that is really unique about the Education Consortium, is that we have 9 to 10 school systems, K-12 school systems on Standing Rock, and all different sizes. Some are K-8, some are K-6, some are K-12, you know, different sizes, different states, different communities, but the one thing that they have in common is that they serve, their population serves Standing Rock Nation students. And so bringing them together and being able to have the principals talk about, you know, how are you implementing this, or what are you doing in your school? You know, they might be trying, has anybody tried this out? So a support network for administrators, bringing together teachers. You know, if you teach in a school that has 80 students, you're probably the only first grade or second grade teacher, or you might be both. And so being able to interact with other first grade teachers, giving them that support. And then for students, bringing them together and uniting them as a nation. I mean, I think that's breaking down those barriers of states, of different schools, and saying we're all part of one. Because when you get older, I think you identify with, I'm from Standing Rock, not necessarily when you're Native American. I think you identify with where you come, what reservation, what nation you're from.
We're seeing students engage in ways that they didn't see before. We do some modeling in classrooms where we go in and we bring not only the Common Core state standards, but also the essential understandings together in a lesson. And we share it, and it's really interesting in classrooms where it's primarily Native students. We suddenly, as we bring in maybe kinship words or something that is part of their culture, suddenly this group of children that maybe weren't as involved or active within the classroom come alive. And that has been really beautiful, because it doesn't diminish the non-Native. It just enhances the Native. It just brings everybody together. So that's been a really positive thing that I have noticed in South Dakota, is that it's sort of giving an opportunity for a group of students in our state that maybe have been underserved in the past. I know they've been underserved, to see themselves in the day more often, to see their identity developed even at school.
I think too often we talk to and we get the perspective of the students that were successful or that are having success, and it's not a very big population in Native communities, and nobody is asking the rest of our community, how do you feel? What would have helped you? Who was helpful? Just not asking the same students, highlighting the same successful students, because they're small and we want to celebrate them. Any successes we want to celebrate, but they are not the majority, and so we need to get that perspective. And I don't think we've done a good job. I don't think nationwide, United States has done a good job of asking, what and why, and valuing that.
When everybody focuses on the children, and there's understanding that that's the most important thing for our future, then the educational system can change.
I really believe our children are going to be amazing leaders, flourish in any space that they're in, any educational space that they're in. There's a number of studies and proven facts around the benefits of being bilingual, trilingual, and but also just the level of confidence and the strong identities that our children have. They are already our little leaders, and I know without a doubt they'll all flourish no matter where they go, no matter what school they end up going. If we have one that we create, if we have one that they have to go because we only create to 5th grade immersion, and then they'll go into another school system where no matter what, our children are going to flourish, and they're going to all graduate, high school and go above and beyond. They're already the children of educated parents, And the confidence that they have is not something that a lot of our children at home have, and they're so young. And I just really believe that there is a direct connection to identity and language and confidence and happiness and healthiness that they have in their lives because of being in the program. That will be a direct result, you know, that they will flourish. They will graduate and they'll go above and beyond high school graduation.
What you're doing is educating the non-Indians about the different tribes and that exist within the state, and that's something that's really important because there's big differences between the Standing Rock Sioux tribe and the 3 affiliated tribe, and we tend to generalize everybody just based off the color of their skin or how they look, when students from 3 affiliated tribe would be, I come from a totally different background than a total different history than we do at Standing Rock. And so just building that kind of awareness with the students in the state school goes a long ways, because there's going to be a time when there's an encounter with a Native American, and by having that understanding and knowing that there's differences between tribes, there's a respect that is earned, I guess, from a non-Indian. A Native American will respect them more because they took the time to learn something about who they are. And by knowing this person really knows what I'm about and who I am, I have respect for that person for taking that time to learn that.